So you've just bought an $80 mouse for the first time per the advice of that weird Best Buy sales associate, or maybe your favorite professional Call of Duty player PewDiePie used it to win the 1993 and 1994 Blockbuster video game championships and told you should buy one. You went home, ripped it out of the packaging and jammed it into the nearest USB port and just started playing games like the Neanderthal that you are, effectively taking $80 and inserting it into your ass. My name is Spudsy, and I make gameplay videos that nobody watches, making me as qualified as anybody to guide you through the confusing world of PC gaming. The steps to setting up your gaming mouse are actually quite easy to follow, but it will take a moment to explain why you should be doing it. Today you graduate from being a fucking casual. We're going to cover setting up your mouse in 3 steps, what we're doing, why, and how. If my deep monotone voice and vulgar language has intimidated you into accepting me as your superior, causing you to blindly follow my instruction, you can skip to the last step. If, however, my deep monotone voice has put you to sleep despite the 4 wadded up Andrew Jacksons causing discomfort in your anal cavity, wake up and pay attention. We'll start with what we're going to do in this guide. We're going to remove mouse acceleration, negative acceleration, and mouse smoothing wherever possible. If you're watching this video, I don't expect you to know what any of those things are, and why should you? You thought playing PC games was just for fun. You make me fucking sick. Don't worry, I can fix you. We'll go over why acceleration is bad, and why people who go out of their way to tell you that mouse acceleration is something that should be left to preference are sad pieces of shit who are the inspiration for birth control. In a nutshell, mouse acceleration means the distance the mouse cursor travels on the monitor scales with the speed at which the mouse is being moved on the mouse pad. For example, if you move your mouse 1 inch at a slow pace, it's going to travel less distance than if you moved the mouse 1 inch very quickly. Now let's talk about negative acceleration. There is a special place in Satan's dark underworld kingdom for the degenerate that ever thought negative acceleration should exist, and it's probably right next to mine. Negative acceleration is when your mouse gets slower the faster you move it. I'm going to give you a moment to process that. Alright, stop fucking around, we have work to do. We're going to quickly glance over mouse smoothing because mouse smoothing oftentimes is just another name for acceleration or negative acceleration. Basically, it just tries to smooth out the movement of the mouse, but usually just ends up making it feel all fucky. Now we're going to explain why these things are bad. It's significantly more difficult, if even possible, to develop the muscle memory in your hand when the mouse is not giving you the same results every time you move it a certain distance. It would be the same as trying to learn to play piano for the first time, but the size of the keys would change depending on how fast you were playing. This is kind of the same thing as whenever the mouse is not traveling the same distance depending on how quickly you're moving it. This is going to make it very difficult to practice the same thing over and over in order to make it a habit or something that you can do without conscious thought. Which muscle memory by definition is the ability to reproduce a particular movement without conscious thought acquired as a result of frequent repetition of that movement. So the idea is that with enough practice, our hand can eventually just start snapping to the target that we want to shoot without even having to think about it. Essentially, we want to take the speed aspect of this movement that we're practicing and simplify it so that we can develop this memory much quicker. Once we remove this acceleration from your mouse, it is going to feel really fucking weird for the first couple of days, but you will adjust to it. Alright, now let's move on to actually setting your mouse up. The first thing we're going to go over is universal and will apply to everyone, and that is the Windows settings. If you're a Mac user, I have no idea how to help you. I don't know what to do. I'm sorry. The first thing we're going to do is pull up your mouse properties in Windows. Most versions of Windows has a different way of accessing the mouse properties. I'm on Windows 10. If you're not on Windows 10, just pause the video, Google it, and come back. Once we're here, we want to click on the Pointer Options tab, and we want this slider to be on the 6th out of 11th tick, and we want this unchecked. The best way to make sure you're on the 6th tick is to put it all the way on the first one, and you're going to use the arrow keys to go to the right 5 times from where you're starting, or start on 1. So this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there we go. Enhanced mouse pointer precision as well as any tick other than 6 out of 11 will add acceleration of some kind. Now for the next step, I can't really show everybody exactly how to do it because everyone has a different mouse. If you don't have a driverless mouse, that is a mouse that requires no software in order to configure it, it's very important that you download and install the software for your mouse. All of the major brands will, like Logitech, SteelSeries, Razrs, probably some other ones. Unless you purchased a less mainstream mouse like a Final Mouse or a Zowie or however the fuck it's pronounced, you probably will have software. Once you have the software, go into the settings and make sure that any acceleration or deacceleration or smoothing is all disabled. While we're in here, we'll talk about the polling rate very quickly and what you should set it to. The polling rate basically is how often the mouse is reporting back to the computer. So the more frequent it reports back, the better. However, it is more stressful on your CPU. This is really only an issue on lower end systems. Go ahead and experiment with it. If you can handle 1000 Hz without getting occasional lag or weird mouse issues, then just use that and adjust lower as needed. Before we leave the software for your mouse, we're going to talk about DPI. If you have a driverless mouse, you're going to have to refer to that mouse's manual on how to adjust the DPI. DPI means dots per inch, and if you really need that explained, basically that's how many dots the mouse will move the cursor in 1 inch of movement. So on a higher resolution screen, it would make sense to have a higher DPI. While your mouse can go up to 3500, 9000, sometimes even over 10,000 DPI, this is not necessarily a good thing. While 3000 DPI technically is more precise than 400, it creates a lot of issues. For example, the reason why the vast majority of professional Counter-Strike players are going to be roughly in a 400 to 800 DPI range is because if you're on 3500, for example, it's a lot easier for all these little imperfections of the movement of the mouse to be blown out of proportion. So like the mouse cord dragging, or maybe your hand got bumped on something, or maybe there was a speck of dust on the mouse pad. These lower DPI ranges are much more forgiving of these imperfect movements. If you're curious what I use, I am currently using 400 DPI, but in the past I have used 3500, I've used 1000, I've used 800, and I have ultimately decided that 400 is the best for me. If you want to try one of these lower DPI settings, I encourage it, and rather than trying to gradually work your way down, I would just do a hard switch and be really frustrated for a few days and just get used to it. It's going to save you a lot of time. Now that we've finished talking about the Windows settings as well as the mouse software settings, we can talk about the in-game settings. If a game has the option for raw input, we want to use that. Raw input essentially makes sure that the game is not adding any acceleration, deacceleration, or smoothing. Furthermore, if the game has any options for acceleration, deacceleration, or mouse smoothing, we want to make sure to disable that. Most mainstream competitive shooters are going to have these options readily available in the settings, so Overwatch, Counter-Strike, and even some less competitive games like Battlefield. However, casual games like Fallout or early access games like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, whatever, oftentimes will not have an option in the settings, but can be adjusted through a configuration file. I'm not going to give you a tutorial on how to do that, as it's a per game thing. If you choose to do this, it is at your own risk, as you technically are modifying a game file. However, I have never come across a game where the developer would consider this to be hacking, as you are only modifying a file that holds your user settings. If you suspect that the game you're playing has mouse smoothing or acceleration of some kind, or if you just want to be sure, just Google how to remove it, insert the name of the game, and you can usually find a guide on how to do so. The only other setting I can think of that you probably want to disable is VSync, as it does create input lag for your mouse. If screen tearing is an issue for you whenever you disable VSync, I would suggest using a frame limit as an alternative. This caps the frames per second that the game is able to display. It's best to match this with the refresh rate of your monitor. You can do this oftentimes in the graphics card settings, using the method I described before, where you modify the user configuration file for that game, and sometimes it's actually an option in the game's settings. Please subscribe to my stupid fucking YouTube channel and let me know if these settings help you in the comments below. I would advise giving it about a week though before you tell me how much this guide has fucked up your aim.
Hey boys, I'm in here now, and I just wanted to say, shut up, Stevie. Nice to hear from you, Josh. It's been too long since we've last talked, and I'm still looking forward to that loaf, and then that cheese and wine on Saturday, and that bond, cheese and wine and loaf. It's gonna be a good time. And also, hello, Aaron. I have nothing really to say to you other than hello, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Watched a man headbutt another man so hard he caused his own head to bleed. And that was cool. And then they were fighting, and they were just kicking the crap out of each other. And then one of them won, and the other one was going to leave the ring, and he couldn't because he was in so much pain and he just kept falling over. And that's how it goes. It's a good time. It's a good WrestleBoy time. And I hope you boys have a good time as well, except for Stevie, because he's a stupid boy.
Wait, we're having bond cheese and wine and loaf on Saturday? Can I come?